Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, a special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2022. It is July 29th. It is Friday. I am Dave Bryan, and co-host obviously is Alex Kozora, fresh off of yet another trip out to Saint Vincent College in Latrobe. Day 3 of practices, open practices for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going on into the weekend here. I think, one more practice, I think, before they get a day off here. Alex, happy Friday to you. And I believe you're a lot drier than you are or were this time yesterday.
I certainly am, and happy Friday to you as well, Dave. Today, and it might be a little weird to say, today kind of felt like the actual first day of camp in the sense of the weather was great, the crowd was fantastic, the energy at practice to me was a lot higher than it was the first 2 days. It really kind of had all the hallmarks of a camp practice, though I think Alex Highsmith said it best when he said, waiting for the pads to come on, which will happen Monday. I think everyone's kind of anxious to go hit somebody.
Putting the tin foil on, as they say in slap shot there. Time to put the foil on. Before we get going here, shout out here to Lynn Testa at touringplans.com and at Touring Plans on the Twitter machine. If you're looking Disney, any Disney trips coming up for your family or you by yourself, hook up and get to Touring Plans and check out. Let them help you book your itinerary and trips and everything associated with that. I think they also do all kind of trip planning on top of it. So, really sort of your online travel agency. Lynn Test has been a sponsor of the special edition versions of the Terrible Podcast for numerous years now. So you would be supporting one of your own by supporting Lynn Testa. So we appreciate having him back again this year. Alex, I think you kind of said it at the start there, or at least through Twitter, and kind of indicated they're really a spirited, kind of high energy practice. And like you said, kind of felt like the first official practice of 2022, right?
Absolutely. It was a longer practice. They're adding some more sessions. So they're kind of going about the 2 hours as opposed to the first day, which was 90 minutes. There was rain yesterday, which complicated things for myself, and probably myself more than it complicated things for the team. But today kind of felt like the actual real first day. And I should really correct myself. There was some hitting today, just maybe not in the way that it was planned, with DeMonte Casey, then Carlos Davis with a crazy moment we'll talk about here shortly, I'm sure.
All right. Let's start on the offensive side of football with the offensive line.
We will talk just quick injury report here.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, get the housekeeping out of the way. My bad.
Not much, just a couple of minor notes here. No Miles Killebrew with a pec. Pat Frymuth. Tomlin did call it a hamstring. He did not work today. The team typically is cautious with those things, so maybe Monday at the earliest. If I had to guess for Frymuth, they may hold him out a little bit longer there, but no big deal. Did not see Levi Wallace. I don't think he was there. Tomlin called that an illness, so probably minor, but a note there. More time for a guy like Kelly Witherspoon to work with the ones. Ogunjobi still in individual, not in team. Status quo for Deontay Johnson. T.D. Moultrie was full today. I imagine he was yesterday, but confirming that for today. Minka seems to be making some progress. I think he could come back potentially as soon as Monday. We'll have to see, but that looks to be going in the right direction. The one injury to talk about, and I missed it, and I apologize for that. Chase Claypool, I think shoulder is what Tomlin called it, I believe. I don't know.
Yeah, and it looked like right shoulder, too.
Okay, so don't know what happened there. I think, did Tomlin say that he felt like it was minor, it wasn't a big deal?
Yeah, he said specifically, let me pull that up real quick. He says Chase Claypool wasn't able to finish. He has a shoulder injury. It's being evaluated. Don't know the severity of it. I'll let you know when I do. Later on, he was asked about it. He says, I really don't know when it occurred, to be honest with you. He said it's probably not serious. So good news there, and we'll just have to see how long that potentially sidelines him, and also with Deontay Johnson and his ongoing hold in, and with Pat Freiermuth, who knows how long that hamstring is going to keep him sidelined. Makes you wonder. They're right there at that number of players, and they probably like to have in the lines there. Will we see a wide receiver, young wide receiver, maybe added to the roster as early as Saturday? So I don't know. Maybe that's potentially something for you to look for when they hit the field.
Sure. My guess is that they won't make that move right now, but you're getting to the point where if something else crops up, you may have to. Claypool, I don't know exactly when, but sometime during the second team session. He began the second team session. It must have happened at some point during this first 4 or 5 reps. I couldn't tell you when or where. He wasn't involved in a play where he fell that I was aware of, that I saw. But hopefully it is minor, as Tomlin indicated.
Yep, absolutely there. And you mentioned in your recap, and I think you had a picture of it on Twitter as well too, Minkah graduating from tennis balls to footballs. Yeah,
that's the level of detail we go. What object is Minkah catching? And so I don't know.
Easy there. That's a little bit that might be too much detail. But.
Too much detail. I'm sorry. Yeah. So catching, it looks fine. I'm sure it was just precautionary to begin with. And because it was at the start of camp, they could place him on NFI. They probably took advantage of that ability to just kind of put him on that list. And so should be good to go sooner than later for Minkah Fitzpatrick.
All righty. And we'll keep our fingers crossed too, see how much longer Tyson Alualu is sidelined, but there's no reason to rush him along with that knee right now. All right. Offensive side of football there. Offensive line specifically, I think you indicated that Kevin Dotson was more the first team guy, at least to kind of start out, right? And then Kendrick Green did get some rotation in there.
Right. This is just a true rotation. So I imagine it's going to be this way every single day, where Kendrick Green will be first team left guard to start tomorrow. It's to the point where it's worth noting, but it's not anything really to talk about, because they are truly rotating the splitting reps pretty close to evenly. And until someone sticks and is getting consistent days with their first team, which probably will not happen. It may not happen at camp at all. It may not occur until after, say, 2 or so preseason games. This is going to be the biggest battle there. So from that standpoint, just expect to talk about the rotation for the next at least week and a half, probably longer.
And how does it, Trent Scott kind of firmly planted at least somewhere in the second team offensive line?
Let me double check my notes, see if I can find it. Yeah, they actually flipped today. Joe Haig was at left tackle, Trent Scott at right tackle. And typically they don't change things up that quickly, but both guys have plenty of experience at both tackle spots. So it's not like they're training a new position, quote unquote. So, but short answer to address your question, yes, Trent Scott, second team. Chaz Green playing some guard. So he was at right tackle last year, getting work at guard so far this camp.
I'm all for not seeing that in a game.
You and me both.
Any other notable things to talk about in the offensive line, or when it comes to overall performance? Probably not a lot to talk about when it comes to performance-wise, other than maybe getting beat in some of the, I guess, team sessions.
Yeah, I would say the run blocking seems okay. Again, that's harder to quantify and get into the evaluation of, because of the contactless aspect of practice so far, but the push seems decent overall. Chukwuma Okorafor had his hands full with TJ Watt, got pulled back on one rush. Next time Watt hits him with the inside spin and beats him cleanly for a would-be sack. Pressure was pretty good by the defensive line today, whether that's DeMarvin Leal, Carlos Davis, that was John LeClue. I think Chaz Green getting beat on a couple reps, Okorafor struggling. So I think overall the pressure was pretty consistent by Pittsburgh's front seven today.
Okay. Before we, anything else to talk about the offensive line there?
Nope, that's about it. Again, Monday's the best day to start talking about that when the Pats come on. Until then, again, just the overall point of they're healthy, they're working together, they're overall pretty clean. Although today offensively there were some miscommunications and some huddles that had to be reset, which I hadn't seen before the first 2 days. So a little bit of that rookie early camp feel in terms of just some early mistakes.
All right. Anything to talk about when it comes to the running back lines?
Not so much with the lines. There's rotation there. It's about what it's been. Obviously Harris, and then Snell / McFarland, then McNichols, then Warren / Durant. More Pony today. McFarland working as that second back, motioning across or kind of, standing up in terms of just right off the tackle's hip there. We'll see if that continues, but the pony watch is on. Jaylen Warren did seem to have a mistake today. There was a handoff that Kenny Pickett gave him. I think Warren thought it'd be play action, so he just took the ball and then just literally stood there, just straight up, didn't move, and got pulled out for the next play there. And that's going to happen occasionally, but that's a wasted rep. And again, these reps are so valuable. You're only getting at max 50, 51 in a given practice, probably less than that today. And so anytime there's a play that goes nowhere, that's a dead ball, essentially, it's just a really wasted rep that does not make coaches happy. So hopefully a mistake that Warren learns from.
All right, tight end lines, one short today in Freiermuth.
Right, and that's Tomlin talked about the opportunities that Jay Sternberger would get. Connor Hayward, who is really exclusively working as a tight end. He does not work with the running backs in drills. He's with the tight ends. I mean, whole lineup is a Y off. He's not doing a ton of hand down, inline, attached kind of work, which is good for him. But you really call him a tight end. You call Derek Watt a fullback in terms of how they're being aligned and used and the rooms and groups in which they work. Zach Gentry had one of the plays of the day, a really beautiful throw from Mitch Trubisky over Miles Jack, and Gentry with that big frame of his caught the ball and then secured it to the ground, kind of making sure that Miles Jack, who tried to pull it away, could not and did not. And so Zach Gentry, man, what a transformation this guy's had. Tomlin spoke about that today as well, the weight that he's gained, the blocking that's improved so much. He was this big, raw, former quarterback from New Mexico that goes to Michigan, kind of played a little bit of receiver very early on. So a lot of progress there for Gentry. And if he can, be a guy that can catch the occasional pass down the seam and use that size and length and kind of power forward body type, that's going to serve him well. So blocking's improved. Could he make the occasional play vertically in the pass game? That's going to be his calling card. Did that today.
All right, and I think you paid extra kind of shouting out Alfredo Roberts today.
Yeah, I love Alfredo Roberts. I mean, this guy just gets no credit to replace James Daniels last year, to work with such a young tight end group, Freiermuth, Gentry, to get those guys to evolve. Still a really young tight end room overall. Gentry, fourth year, but has not played a ton of football until last year. Freiermuth, obviously, year two. Connor Hayward, Sternberger trying to do something with him. Just really working those guys hard, working those guys early and often. And I think that's really paid off. So Roberts, to me, is probably the most underrated coach on this coaching staff.
Okay, wide receivers. Alex, that kid that's wearing number 14, I think they should keep him.
I think they should. I think they will. Showing some chemistry with Mitch Trubisky, but just making some really good plays. I think there's some plays getting posted on Twitter, and we're not allowed to do that. We will not do that, but I think people have seen some of those by now. That one throw that Trubisky had, which was a good throw, right sideline with the spoon, try to jump it, and Pickens, just such strong hands. His hands aren't that big. I think they're 8 1/4, but there's so much strength in his hands, and he plucks the ball away from his body so effortlessly and fluidly, and tears up field for a big, 30, 31 yard gain. And so made another play, I think, kind of right seam later on in the day. Just seeing all the traits with George Pickens that got him drafted. And so getting a ton of reps here, especially with Johnson holding in and Chase Claypool missing time today. And so he's really taking advantage of the opportunity.
All right, in 3 wide receiver sets, more of the X, or they moving them around quite a bit? You seeing any in the slot or what?
Not really in the slot, really more outside. I think I had noted one X receiver snap today. That's probably where it's mostly been. And so, again, outside receiver, and that's probably the best tone for him right now. And
I think you said Anthony Miller was a beneficiary of maybe some extra early snaps, right?
Yeah. Now, he was working ahead of Cody White and 7 shots. So White was obviously healthy, and Claypool was still healthy at that point. He hadn't gotten hurt. And so it just seemed to be they were giving Miller a look, who's made some plays and got targeted a fair amount overall in camp. And so Miller trying to, get an opportunity here. And what that means going forward, we'll see. Rotations at receiver pretty common, and they're going to mix and match and try different guys. But it felt like Miller running ahead of Cody White today.
Okay, Miles Boykin, a couple demerits, right?
Yeah, really the first time he showed up in my notes one way or another. Just some deep ball opportunities. I think one was in team, another in 7-on-7 where he just couldn't come down. And I think one, he slowed up a little bit. I believe that one was in team, and if he would have kept running through it, he would have had a better chance to make the play, but a couple off his hands. And those are balls that aren't going to always be caught. You can't expect 100% or 90% of them to be caught, obviously, but you want to see a guy with that height, weight, speed, especially without pads right now, make some plays. It's a little concerning to me, to be honest, Dave, that in this padless practice setting, 3 days in, a guy like Miles Boykin that's 6'3", 6'4", 220 that runs low 4.4 is not standing out more than he has, and actually struggling a little bit. And so that's not the best start. Just early, but not the best start from Miles Boykin.
Right, especially with a guy that, I mean, let's face it, this guy's a Z, and that's what he is. He's a guy that if he's going to be on your roster and getting snaps offensively, one of his primary traits needs to be getting downfield and making plays down the field. And it is, once again, it is early. We'll see how it pans out, but he's got to start making some of those plays. I think one of them went off his hands, didn't it?
Both of them. I mean, they were both well contested by, I think it was James Pierre and Chris Steele, respectively. But both of those were catchable in plays that you would expect a guy like Boykin to make.
All right. Anybody else on Gunnar Olszewski, or what about any of those other bottom of the end wide receivers?
Not as much to note there. Olszewski seeing some slot work. Calvin Austin working ahead of him in the slot. Once Claypool left for the day, Austin's reps went up in terms of being kind of first team slot receiver with, I think, Miller and Pickens, I want to say, on the outside. At least Pickens, I'll have to check. Maybe it was Cody White. I'll have to see who the other receiver was. But Austin seeing some of that slot work there. And so it's kind of been, I guess, kind of like Claypool first team slot. And then I guess you would kind of say maybe Miller, then Austin, then Olszewski in kind of a loose way. It's been harder to determine depth charts because there actually seems to be a lot more rotation this year, team-wide wise, to start camp, where there's a lot more mixing and matching, probably because there is some more youth there, more new guys, more known. You're trying to feel out who can fit best where.
All right. Pickens obviously sticking out a lot more than Austin. Not that it's bad against Austin. It's just Pickens is really, really flashing these last couple of days, right?
Right. I mean, Austin's showing his speed. You can feel that speed. No one's surprised by that. The dude ran 4.32 at the combine, but you want to just see if that speed still looks as fast when the pads come on, because some of it is like they can't be touched, and some of these DBs are going to pull up because they don't want to collide, have some sort of injury, someone going to the ground, and pointless to do that right now. So I know the speed looks good. They had a jet play today where Austin turned the corner and gained 13 yards. And it's a nice play. You definitely see that speed. But to me, it's kind of football in shorts, and we'll see how effective that speed is starting Monday.
Man, Tim Rice has a good shot, and I think it was used on one of the posts today with I think Claypool, saying, "Look, this guy's a top rookie wide receiver." And the picture for that post, you just tell how long Pickens is. You know how I love those long. I long for long receivers, and he certainly does look the part, especially not in pads and all like that. And obviously, once again, flashing these first several days of training camp, which is, that's what you want to see out of these early round draft picks, and especially a wide receiver, because this team needs explosive plays, man. We're going to be talking about that from the start of the season on. Can this team get the explosive 20-yard plays? They're going to need it on offense this year. Okay, quarterback. For lack of a better word, I think you put it at the end, kind of at your end of your notes there. And it's still early. No hard decisions are being made or anything like that. But Kenny Pickett's just not pressing anybody right now.
Yeah, it just hasn't been a good start. What I said in my notes today, because it is 3 days in, and at some point you have to stop saying, well, it's early. I mean, it obviously is still early, but you can talk about some thoughts at least. And here's what I wrote. I said 3 days in and there are no final conclusions, but I'm willing to make an opening statement. Kenny Pickett is not making a push for the starting quarterback gig right now. Right now it's Trubisky versus Rudolph, and that seems to be the way it's starting. Could that change? Absolutely. But Pickett's play will have to change. First pass he threw today was behind Jay Sternberger on a 7-yard out route. Just stuff like that, where it just wasn't as crisp, as clean, as effective overall as what Trubisky and Rudolph have been able to do.
Is it speed of the game? Is it processing? Is it working with later with the later groups? All the above? Is there anything sticking out?
Yeah, it's probably all the above. I know some people on Twitter will say, well, he's working with third team, but the defense is third team too, so it all kind of washes out to me. I'm not going to use that. If that's your excuse for your first round franchise quarterback, then I think we got some problems. So I'm not going to use that as the excuse. I don't know what to pinpoint it specifically. It's probably just trying to adjust to the NFL. Obviously, Trubisky, Rudolph, they've been there, done that. They're NFL veteran guys. So this is, old hat to them. So I understand why Pickett would not look maybe as sharp early compared to those other guys. In terms of a specific issue, maybe a bit harder, but overall, just probably ball placement would just be the issue. Now, what the reason for that, the core root of it, I couldn't really tell you, but I think improving that ball placement, maybe speeding up a little bit, would be good for him.
All right, three practices in. Hasn't Rudolph indeed been the best of the three?
Yes, I think overall, if you take the 3 days in totality, today was closer. Rudolph at least led a couple of scoring plays in 7 shots. He threw the only 2 touchdowns the Pittsburgh offense had in this one. Defense winning 7 shots, 5-2. Trubisky, I thought, bounced back better in some of the team sessions, and that throw to Gentry, I thought was maybe the best throw of the day. But again, just to kind of out of the gate, I would say, as we for the horse race analogy, that first turn, it's Trubisky and Rudolph with Pickett behind.
Okay, and Chris Oladokun still has the least interceptions on the team, correct?
And still as many reps as you and I, so still waiting for that. I guess they'll come at some point, but I don't know when that point will be.
I was surprised today that Pickett didn't get any 7 shots. I imagine you were as well.
I wasn't sure which way it would go. It wouldn't surprise me really either way, but at some point he might. I'd like to see him run the 2-minute drill more than I care about the 7 shots. I think the 2-minute drill is a little more football, real-like in terms of how you manage things whenever it's not, okay, let's run a play, then stand next to Matt Canada and with the card, and he tells me the call. I mean, it's just a little different feel. So I at least hope that Pickett can get some 2-minute drill type stuff, which maybe will happen Monday when the Pats come on. To me, that's more interesting situational football than 7 shots.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you're not suggesting to cut Kenny Pickett, though, right?
I am not. Again, I don't want to freak anybody out here, but it is 3 days, and we're already up to, I don't know, over 100 reps total for the team for Pickett. I'll do maybe some stats tonight just to kind of put some numbers on this. I'm sure some people will lose their minds. I got to be careful about that stuff.
Easy.
I don't want to blow anyone's mind here.
With your fancy math and all like that.
But yeah, it's not been a great start for Kenny Pickett.
All right. Anything else offensively? Is any overarching kind of views or anything like that about the offense so far?
It has that Canada feel. I know sometimes I feel like some people, and it's not obviously us, but some people want to shoehorn things into the Canada version. Like I know Tomlin was asked about, there's a lot of tight ends out there being used. I mean, they used tight ends in camp last year too. I mean, in terms of going heavier personnel and stuff like that. But there was one play today, and this is probably not, I don't think it's brand new, but it just kind of encapsulated some of the shift of Canada running what he wants. They're in like heavy personnel. They're in, I don't know, 21, 22. They're under center, and then they go empty shotgun, spread the whole field out of that heavy personnel, which is like the Browns would do that all the time. Like they would go heavy, and they would have their big tight ends in the field, and they would spread things out, and that would really mess with Pittsburgh's defense. And that's when you get linebackers in bad cover situations. So the motions, the jet runs, those kind of things, very much more firmly the Canada run offense. Now, again, we saw a good amount of that in camp last year because on days when Ben wouldn't practice, there were other quarterbacks that could do that kind of stuff. So it's not brand new, but probably reinforced. The reinforced Canada offense is probably the way I would describe it.
All right, and on one of the touchdowns to new kid Jeremy McNichols, that was a blown coverage, wasn't it?
Yes, I don't know who blew it, but McNichols was wide open in the right flat. So whatever linebacker was supposed to flow that way did not.
Okay. Defensive side of football, defensive line. DeMarvin Leal still making himself known, huh?
Yeah, he's having a strong start overall with the pressure today. Had a batted pass on a attempted bubble screen. Actually, I think it was on that play where they went from under center to empty spread, and Leal was able to knife through and bat that one down. And so that was a nice play there. So Leal continues to show up positively in my notes. All
right. Anybody else? Carlos Davis, other than his temper, we'll talk about in a little bit. Anybody else? Loudermilk flashing any?
Yeah, for Loudermilk, not really flashing, but I don't think this is the best environment for him right now in terms of the more pass heavy. The run sessions aren't obviously as intense. I think maybe once pads come on, that might be the chance for Loudermilk to shine. He's gotten some rotational work in as a defensive tackle. It's just pretty deep along that defensive line, and Leal's playing well and getting time. They want to see what they have in him, and so really don't have a lot to know from Loudermilk so far.
Right. We're not, and we're obviously not too terribly worried about the starters and all, but Montravius Adams and Wormley. I should say not all that worried about Cam Hayward. And obviously you're not going to probably put a lot of eyes on him as this thing goes forward. Maybe you will when the pads go on in some instances there. But what about Wormley and Montravius Adams?
Yeah, again, the trench guys are so tough to watch because A, they get a little lost in the shuffle of it all, and B, more importantly, just the lack of contact. I know I've said that so much, but it is different this year because typically in past years, first 2 days are not in pads. By the third day, the pads come on. So we kind of get into this stuff a little bit quicker. This year, I think due to some NFL rules, it's 4 days before you can put the pads on. So that fifth practice is when things really start to go to another level. So the trench guys are tough to evaluate, but Wormley working, first team left defensive end. Right now, Adams, first team nose tackle, and they're both getting sub package nickel time as well.
All right. Inside linebacker, any notable stuff there?
Yeah, don't have much there today. Just trying to think of anything that popped up at all. It can be a little tough to kind of tell, who's running in terms of what team. And there is still a little bit of that Buck versus Mac. I think it's kind of all blurred together to an extent, but maybe there's still some of that in terms of this training camp type setting, in terms of where you're going to run, but nothing too high or too low today from those guys.
All right. Outside linebackers, TD Moultrie, I saw come across, I think your Twitter feed.
Yeah, I think it was Cam that kept shouting him out. I wasn't really ever watching Moultrie too specifically, but I think there was one rush where I didn't catch the player. I didn't see the number live, but I'm pretty sure it was Moultrie with a quick first step to win the edge and get pressure on Kenny Pickett. And so it felt like there might be a good burst in that first step with Moultrie. So a guy I want to keep an eye on. Reps are still tough to come by because there are so many edge guys. It's really like 4+ teams. I mean, first team is Watt and Highsmith. Obviously, second team is Avery and Tuska. And then third team becomes, it's kind of mixed a little bit, but Delonte Scott, and two's our skipper. And then you get to like Moultrie and Tyree Johnson. And so that's, 4 lines there and not a ton of reps to go around. And so it's really trying to make the most of those chances. But I think Moultrie, again, for me, these first couple of days are about showing traits, and Moultrie looks like a pretty explosive guy off the ball. That's a very good trait to have, of course, for a pass rusher.
All right. We should get to see plenty of him in that first preseason game, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah. Second half, it'll be a lot of Skipper and Scott and Moultrie and Johnson.
All right. Cornerback.
Yeah, James Pierre showing up. Had that breakup in 7-on-7, I want to say. A breakup to Cody White on a boot during team, making plays in the football. And said a lot of this last year, and you want to see that consistency with his technique at the catch point. But like where James Pierre is at. See what else did I have here? Chris Steele had a breakup, I think, on Boykin. That might have been in the 7-on-7. Did have Steele did pass interference on Connor Hayward, kind of grabbed him up too high there. But yeah, so these DBs making plays in the football, and that's kind of been the theme of the first 3 days.
All right, and you noted that a few times already. It feels like this is Justin Lane versus James Pierre, right?
I think you can frame it that way. Now, obviously, what happens with injuries and all that, I haven't quite mapped out. Is there a scenario in which both could make it? I suppose that's possible. But with Casey looking like he's got better odds than I initially gave him credit for making it, then that may limit an opportunity for both Lane and Pierre to make it. So it has that 2 dogs, 1 bone feel. At least you might have that thought of maybe we both make it, but maybe we don't. And let's go with the assumption that both of us won't make it. And that means I really got to step up there to play well so that I'm at least the guy that makes it.
And these are 2 guys that should know what's going on, right?
Right. And that might be another element when you're more veteran guys, especially Lane, who's now year number 4. I mean, you're going to play a little bit better in these scenarios. But they're kind of working second team corners and trying to, again, just scratch and claw and fight their way on the 53.
All right. And Arthur Millette in the slot today with the team down the corner.
Right, Witherspoon, Sutton firmly outside with Wallace not being available. So that was good for Millette because it gave him a lot of slot reps. Good for Witherspoon. There was no rotation there, so a good day for those guys to get a fair amount of first-team time.
Does it? I mean, is it feeling like Millette's, so far, obviously 3 days in, but it feel like Millette's roster spot pretty safe right now?
To start, but I just don't know how much those things can change because I know that whenever – because the way they're rotating Wallace and Witherspoon right now is not the way they're going to rotate that during the season. You know what I'm saying? They're doing that right now just for their own evaluation so they can work other guys in the slot and see what they can do. But your three corners, come week one, assuming they're all healthy, is Cam Sutton, Levi Wallace, and Akella Witherspoon. And who's in the slot, there's a different question leaning towards Sutton, but we'll see how things look. So the way, I kind of mentioned this yesterday, the way things are functioning now in camp is different than the way they're going to function during the season. So I think it's still early or too early to tell on those things.
The good thing is we keep mentioning Chris Steele's name.
Yeah, and I wasn't too sure how he would look. And again, very early in the process, but making his plays on the football, you do that, you're going to get noticed. And so got to play a bit cleaner. And again, had that would-be DPI on Connor Hayward today. But overall, he's in my notes.
All right, safeties.
Safety, it's DeMonte Casey. It was DeMonte Casey show today, and 7 shots. He had that break up to Kevin Rader, big tight end that could box him out on a dig right over the middle, and Casey able, I think, come under that and swat that ball away. He had a big stick on Calvin Austin, kind of an RPO type quick slant, and I think Casey, obviously not trying to really tackle, but maybe trying to make a play on the football, and Austin caught it a step before Casey got there, and a real big collision, and the ball popped out, and I don't know if you would have called that a fumble or there was no booth review on that play, but point is, Casey had a pretty big pop there. And so not really what you're looking for. You want guys to stay on their feet, of course, but that's been the hardest hit so far in camp.
All right.
You want to mention, by the way, the defensive line, Carlos Davis. Yeah, he was scrapping today. I forgot to mention him. He gets into it with Kendrick Green. And then at the end, the last play of practice, I don't know what the heck happened. It's a play. It's a throw to the right. I see Jake Dixon. He's tangled up in somebody. I believe it was actually Tyree Johnson. I couldn't see the number because his jersey was pulled up. And then Carlos Davis, who I'm pretty sure was not in the play at all. He was on the sidelines. He was not in that snap. I'm watching it happen like slow-mo. He's just sprinting full speed at Jake Dixon and just ear holes him on the side. Dixon's on top, but Johnson's just kind of hovering over top of him. And Davis just, boom, just nails him. And then, of course, everyone comes over. The whole offense comes over and kind of retaliating and trying to half of them are retaliating, half of them are trying to break it up. But I've seen a lot of things. Camp fights are common, but I've never seen a dude sprint 15, 20 yards just at a dude just to nail him like that. A teammate, pretty wild.
That's some sort of carry over there, right?
Yeah, but Davis was scrapping with Kendrick Green, and that first thing, maybe Dixon, but I don't think Dixon was even on that play because Kendrick Green probably wasn't running with Jake Dixon in the line. So I don't know what set Carlos Davis off. At first I thought maybe like Dixon was mixing up with Khalil Davis, his brother, because that would make sense why Carlos got so pissed, but I don't know what happened, but Davis was running hot today.
Thomas says, you guys have been around long enough to know that I'm not going to answer questions about every skirmish that breaks out. He goes on to say, we're competing our tails off. An environment like this is an opportunity to teach and learn, not only from a competitive standpoint, but a professional standpoint, working to keep it professional. He says, from time to time, it happens. None of us like it, but it is a teaching opportunity. So that will be my response anytime you guys ask me about skirmish. Sounds like the media just wants to ask about who's the starting quarterback, and they like asking about all skirmishes.
Yeah, I get, most of the time the skirmishes, they're just skirmishes. They're not really worth addressing. They're forgotten about by the time Tomlin's asked about it. But this one felt different, and I'm not ever expecting an answer there. But I'd love to be a fly on that wall in terms of Carlos Davis or Jake Dixon, just wondering what the heck happened, because this was not your typical skirmish. A dude just got earholed. Dixon never saw it coming, and so that just has a different feel of escalation.
All right, any overarching thoughts on the defense, Alex? They're still the better unit, obviously.
Yeah, still the better unit. Again, they won 7 shots. They were up 4-0 and ended up winning at 5-2. The offense made some plays today. Pickens and Gentry, kind of the two most notable ones overall. But I think things are just pretty clean overall. I don't see a lot of sloppiness. Really, offensively, in terms of turnovers, but just in terms of just general, not a lot of really sloppy, bad, ugly play on either side of the football in terms of like just basic fundamental stuff. So I'm happy with where things are at.
All right, and they tried the old catch as many punts as you can aspect today, right?
Yeah, I think Anthony Miller had 5 and almost 6, but couldn't secure the 6th ball there, and then Gunner had 4, couldn't get 5. Gunner's a little smaller, so he's got less places to put the football.
All right, let's see, where should we go from here?
I think that covers basically it. If you might like overreaction of the day, again, I don't think it's an overreaction just to say that, Kenny Pickett right now is not really in the mix to be the starter. And again, could that change? Sure, it could. But with where things sit here today, it is Mitch Trubisky versus Mason Rudolph.
All right. So that would be your overreaction of the day, right?
It would be. So again, I'm not trying to like freak people out, but my honest opinion of it, if we took the first round pick label off of Kenny Pickett for a moment and just again said, these are the 3 days of camp, who's in the mix here to start, Pickett would not be in that conversation.
All right. Any closing thoughts on this Friday before we get into looking ahead to Saturday?
Not much for Friday. Saturday, there should be fun. I expect a really big crowd on hand. Weather should be good. So, I mean, it should be a good practice.
All right. So with that, we'll start wrapping up this episode here, and we'll be back again after the Saturday practice. They're expecting a pretty good crowd out there. I think they're announcing the Hall of Honor out there as well. I think sometime tomorrow before practice or right around in there, we should know who the 2022 Hall of Honor inductees are. So that'll be something to look forward to as well too. So hopefully the weather holds up and all with that. So let's see. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you want an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar for $25. You can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. Alex, great job. Keep it up with those stats. and we'll do this again on Saturday night. As always, thanks for listening to another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2022 with Dave and Alex.